Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Take roll call. Councilwoman Donovan? Here. Councilwoman McKinney? Here. Mayor Buckfusco?
Here.
Councilman Rondinero? Here. Councilor Levis?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, and first responders. And let us also remember Virginia Havens, who was the mother of Darlene Havens, a member of our library board, and the grandmother of Ray Claudio, one of our code enforcement officials. And also, I learned today, Bobby Lamb, who worked on the beach, also passed away today.
And let's also remember James Riley. Jim and Jill lived on Inlet Terrace for 40+ years, and he passed away last year.
Please be seated. Okay, workshop. Let's start with the acknowledgement of the best practices inventory. I believe everybody received that. It's a standard thing that we need to do each year. And as we score a certain number of points, we're good, and we did that this year. So are there any questions, comments from the council on that? Okay. Any other issues for workshop?
I just thought it would be worth mentioning the good job that the borough did doing the research on the health insurance plan and how important that was to do. I know that was the biggest driver of increases in our budget, and it was going to continue to do so. Healthcare costs are high all over the country, and that is absolutely the case in New Jersey. So I'm glad that a solution came up for the borough, and thank you to everyone who worked on it.
Anything else? All right, let's move on to petitions.
The mayor has not received any petitions.
Approval of minutes.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 14th meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
The reports of council. Councilwoman Donovan.
The Environmental Club is continuing to work on grants and to work out dates for our warmer weather activities like cleanups at McCleary Park and the beach. So I'll keep you apprised of that. We finalized our grant with the coalition with our 4 neighboring towns in the county. A lot of hard work went into that. Thank you to borough employees who also worked on that. Harbor Commission is finalizing rate recommendations for next year. Our goal is always to come up with a system that is both transparent and predictable. And finally, January 14th is the Belmar Women's Club Winter Extravaganza. A ticket bundle is $50. If you've never been, please consider coming out to support. It's an incredible event. There are 1,010,000 gift baskets that you can try to win. They work for months and months and months on it. I won cornhole boards last year. Yes. And if you want more information, you can find the Women's Club on Facebook. You can contact the 75 members now strong of the Women's Club, or Johanna Roper Robinson, who is running the event. Thank you.
Councilwoman McKinney.
Thank you. Around recreation, basketball sign-ups are happening now. They need more 5th to 8th grade girls to sign up. So if you know of any 5th to 8th grade girls that would like to play basketball for recreation, please do so. Youth Club begins November 15th. Sign-ups are happening now. They're Saturday nights. Safe and fun activities for kids on Saturday nights. 5 to 6:30 is 3 to 5th graders. 7 to 8:30 p.m. is 6th to 8th graders. So sign up for Youth Club. St. Rose High School is having their public school shadow day November 6th. 8th graders and transfer students are welcome to spend the day as a St. Rose High School student. Registration is at srhsnj.com/public school shadow day. And St. Rose High School and Grammar School would also like you to know their PTA biannual clothing drive. They do it in the fall and in the spring. The clothing drive is Saturday, November 15th from 8 to 10 a.m. in the church parking lot. Drop off all your clothing. They'll take blankets, they'll take towels, they'll take anything, you know, I think they even take stuffed animals, so bring all your things. And then I would like to share that with the Belmar Elementary School, so I will pass that down to you guys. The next Shade Tree Commission meeting is November 13th, and that is all I have.
Thank you. Council President Rondinero.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge our first responders for National First Responder Day. Belmar relies on the bravest team of volunteers and employees to keep us safe. I see many of our first responders here in this room, so thank you. Thank you for what you do and your sacrifice. Our library, since our last meeting, our library had a phenomenal Diwali event, celebration, and also a local authors event, both at the Taylor Pavilion, very well attended and extremely wonderful. The library does fantastic things, including the return of the live animal series. So we've got penguins, we've got wolves, and a touch tank coming your way in the next few weeks. This Saturday is the Penguin Pointers, and that's Jenkinson's Pavilion, actually brings in some penguins to the Taylor Pavilion. That will be at 11 a.m. And then the wolves are November 8th at 11 a.m. And then we'll have the touch tank December 6th. So penguins this Saturday, 11 a.m. Please register online at belmarlibrary.org or call the library if you need assistance. The Belmar Housing Authority has its next meeting November 3rd at 5:15. I was present for their opening of bids for the facade repair last Thursday. I'll have more information on that after next week when they have their board meeting. And lastly, our veteran military hometown hero banners will be up again on Main Street this year in time for Veterans Day. And there is a Veterans Day service, I believe at 9 a.m. on Veterans Day on the 11th, where it normally is in Memorial Row. Thanks.
Councilman Levis.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a great Fall Fest last weekend. I want to thank the Belmar Lake Como Chamber of Commerce for putting that on. They had face painting, bounce house, pumpkin painting, lots of candy and lemonade. It was a good time for the kids. They had a great time. The cars were cool. Really good time. And I also want to thank Barry for the great trunk or treat we had last weekend. It was also a wonderful time for the kids out in Dempsey Park there. And then to echo what Councilwoman Donovan said about the Harbor Commission, we are looking at doing some new rates for the commercial slips. That will sort of change the way we had done it in the past, where we're not looking at the use of the boat, but more looking at the boat itself and the number of passengers on board. So we're hoping to have a recommendation for the next council meeting that we can present to the council to vote on the rates. The Harbor Commission is also looking to do their annual report, potentially at the next council meeting, where they can present sort of the state of the marina and give the public an overview of what's going on and some of the things they're working on. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I have two things on this past Sunday. Council President Rondinero and Councilwoman Donovan and I attended a 125th anniversary service at the First Baptist Church in Belmar. That's on 9th Avenue. And it was very inspiring if you've never been to that kind of a service, but it was a great thing, I think, for all of us to attend. They have a tremendous congregation there. They had a little video also of people expressing, how being involved in the church has helped them, and what they get out of being a member of that congregation. So it was really, all in all, I think a very good experience for us all. And I'd like to thank, the Reverend James A. Jackson and all of his deacons who were just more than accommodating to us. And we had a resolution that we read, again, honoring the church in this, very historic anniversary. So that was that. We also had a Halloween contest in town, and if you haven't seen it on Facebook, we have some winners. The first place winner was 105 19th Avenue. I believe there are still pictures up. I'm not sure if that's yeah, they're there. The second place was 1101 B Street, and third place was 213 12th Avenue. And then we had a best pumpkin display at 400 River Avenue. So if you haven't checked those out, you might want to take a look at the pictures or just drive around and you can see them in person. Okay, that's all that I have at this point. Okay.
Next, we have the public session on the resolutions. If anyone has a comment or question about a resolution, please step forward, state your name and address. I have a motion to close the public session.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Donovan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Bonifesco?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rondinero?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
Okay, there are no ordinances, so now we're on to public session. If anyone would like to speak, please remember to state your name and address first.
Just like to remind everybody, we'd like to keep the comments to 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm Martha Masalco, 102 North Boulevard, Belmar. Okay, I prepared it, so it's very clear. We come before you tonight for a move. Is the mic on?
You have to speak up.
Thanks. Okay, we come before you tonight to again raise concerns about the continuing delays in repairing the outflow pipe, a system that has now failed 3 times. According to Billy Musto, the pipe was found to not be in working order sometime between May and June. Residents were never notified when the replacement part was ordered. On October 15th, we learned that the final was fabricated, but the delivery isn't expected until March 26th. This is 10 months from discovery to repair. We thank the DPW staff for manually managing the lake water flow. The October storm was mild, but in severe storms, manual operations would put workers' lives at risk, and that is not acceptable. We are asking the town to prioritize, thank you, keeping the outflow system operational at all times, and to consider ordering a backup part to prevent this recurring issue. Caitlin Donovan informed us that our request for ordering a backup part was denied, possibly due to the $50,000 cost. We believe the safety of our residents, our property, and our workers is well worth the investment. So that's what we have to say.
Thank you. We'll look into that.
Does anybody else?
Good evening, Council. My name's Rich Seidel, 2010 Surf Avenue, Belmar, New Jersey. And it's also regarding the outflow pipe in Lake Como. I'm concerned about a number of things. One is the safety of the workers, the public workers going out there in conditions that are atrocious to try to manually operate that. But I thought when we got the grant of $6.2 million that there was an agreement as to who was going to manage the pipe between Spring Lake, Lake Como, and Belmar. Is there an agreement, and does that agreement specify who's responsible for the costs involved in repairing and maintaining the pipe? Now, people may not think that this is more of a global issue too. If Belmar is responsible and we're not maintaining that pipe properly, what happens if there is a Category 2 and all of the surrounding towns get property damage? I'd like to know from the attorneys if we're the ones managing that, do we have enough insurance to cover the repercussions of not having that pipe fixed in a prompt manner? Thirdly, this to me is not a public works issue. This to me is an engineering issue, and when you have something as seriously as this, the Army Corps of Engineers or somebody should basically be giving input in what has to be done and get this thing moving. I'll await your comments.
Number one, I can't comment on the agreement because I'm not aware of it. I wasn't here at the time, so I'd have to go back and do research and actually look at what that agreement says. Okay, so that's the first thing. As far as insurance liability for the borough in maintaining that or not maintaining it, that's, as you said, that's a legal question that it'd have to be referred to council to see what liability, if any, the borough has. And the third thing was, you mentioned input from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, in other words, this has been going on so long, and this is the third time it broke.
But I think the question that I have is, I'm concerned when people are saying that there's a risk to municipal workers. And I guess I have to ask our director, is there a risk for people to go and manually operate that?
If a storm is severe enough, yes, there would be. But if it's going to be that kind of event, then I wouldn't put them out there.
Is this the type of thing where once it's opened, it's opened, and that's you know, and then we don't have to go back to it until the storm is over?
No, actually, there's a manual gate valve at the head of the lake, and the employees were manually opening and closing it on the tide cycles. So when the tide was coming in, they'd have the gate closed. When the tide would go out, they would open it. This way, the water would have somewhere to go. But that's right at the head of the lake, so that would be right in, right in the storm.
So I mean, in terms of just the risk of flooding, as long as the gate valve is being opened and closed with the tides, the change in the tides, the lake will be maintained at a certain level.
I would like to think so.
Right. And then the issue becomes what happens in a bad storm. And as you said, it's an engineering question. The question is, why does the valve keep breaking? Is it a poor design? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. So, I'd have to look at that. We'd have to look at that agreement, see what the details are of that, and take it from there.
And I also suggest where it's fine, this storm, we were lucky, okay, this past storm. But if people would look at the pictures after Sandy and to see how high that water got, you couldn't do anything manually. So there's then the cost of bringing in pumps for months. So I mean, this is something that should be done because the tide cycle goes out, then you have an issue where you may not be able to drain it manually, but the ocean itself will let it go out.
Mayor, can I just ask a question? I was surprised by the delivery date being March 2, if it's already fabricated. Do we know whether, do you know, or does Mr. Kane, do you know why, or Mr. Musto, do you know why it's that far out for delivery? I know it's a huge part.
Yeah, it's actually not manufactured yet. It's being fabricated. That was the delivery date. So, and it is a 60-inch pipe, and the parts are not on the shelf. Everything needs to be handmade, and the company that is making it obviously have customers in front of us. So when they get to our pipe, when they get to our valve, is when they work on it.
This is going to maybe sound ignorant, but is there any option for a request for a rush order, or to see if there's anyone else who could, maybe manufacture that part more quickly?
I think you have to put the whole thing in perspective also. I mean, yes, if there is a very severe storm, then it's a big problem. If we're just talking about rain and potential flooding, it sounds like to me that in the meantime, the manual opening and closing is fine. We get into the problems when we have a situation where it may not be safe to put the workers out there. So, I mean, I think we hope for the best, you know, and in the meantime, hopefully that part will get here. I don't want to be, you know, a predictor of doom, but even with a new part, you know, that new part can be put in, and 6 months from now, in a big storm, it could fail. So we always have to have options beyond relying on that part. So, you know, if that happens, then we need to go to a plan B, which is going to be probably pumps and other ways to drain the lake and keep the flooding down. So, I mean, I think that's always something that needs to be planned for, and I'm sure it is planned for, because you never know, you know, how big of a storm we're going to get, how severe it's going to be, and I think, you know, parts break all the time. There's no guarantee that the new part won't break in 6 months, and you know, or next year sometime. So I think the important thing is, you know, we get the part, we get it in, and we have an alternative plan that if we should have a severe storm, that we have an alternate plan that can serve the same purpose.
I have a quick question. Is the new part we ordered exactly the same valve as the last two that broke?
No, it's an upgraded model.
My understanding is that the original valve, like valve 1 in 2017, that was the one that was faulty to begin with, and then the second one, yeah, so it's not that the same, the problem was with the original valve itself, not with the design, if that makes sense, if I'm being clear?
No, I think it is in fact the design. I think they, in every replacement, they change it a little bit in hoping that it gets better and better, but it's the force of the water, the ocean water coming up the pipe slams the valve closed against the concrete vault, and that's what the banging everybody hears down the south end. So when the water rushes up the pipe, it has nowhere to go, so it closes the valve hard.
It feels like it would make sense once we verify that the valve, once it comes, is functional and working correctly, to budget to order another one for backup. I mean, I don't see how that's not part of the plan.
What did we say though? Early March, late March? What did they say?
I think it was the end of March.
I think that could be part of the plan, but I just want to assure the residents that no matter what the plan is to have a backup part or a third part, the borough will do whatever it needs to do to avoid flooding in that area. That's really the message that I have. Okay.
Good evening. My name's Eugene Jacoby. I live at 2006 Surf Avenue down that end. And I guess maybe I would just, you know, maybe following up on kind of what Rich, maybe if it's engineering or whatever, but there's no sense continuing to order these things if the structural design is not appropriate to, if we're going to just continue to be in the sloop of $50,000 every, however frequently it is, that doesn't seem like a good use of our funds either. So it would seem like it would make sense if they sort of committed that the version they're going to send is a little bit better, but maybe they represent that before. You know, we should, as a town, have a sense of confidence that this is going to fix the problem. Now, if we have to live with the idea that things break, and so therefore, you know, it happens to break when we're having a really bad storm, and we don't want to send the guys out there because it's not their best interest, you know, then, you know, did we really? I think we want to make sure we do our due diligence up front to try to eliminate that situation to the best that we can. And so the only other question I would ask is, do we have any sort of warranty on this piece, or again, is it because?
As I said before, I wasn't here, you know, back in the day. I haven't even ever seen that.
I'm just throwing these things out there.
I don't know.
We need to find out if we have any sort of reps or warranties, if it fails. You know, so then maybe we're not at $50,000.
We can definitely look into that and see what the.
My recollection from what I've seen from what staff put together was that the original one was replaced. But this one, by the time it broke, was no longer under warranty, which is why we're paying out of pocket for it. I don't know, 2 years. So the new one will be covered for 2 years? So we have, you know, about 1 year to order a replacement.
So doing the flap or whatever it is it representing to us that, hey, this may or may not work because there's a design flaw? They're not suggesting that. They're just sort of indicating this should work.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not the only coastal town with a lake. Like, there's gotta be other towns that have a successful system.
I mean, we spent, we got a grant or whatever, but there
I
was
think-
an estimate rate, right, to try to fix the problem. And it seems like we're still sort of at risk here for.
Councilwoman Kitty brings up a really good point, which is there are other coastal lakes that have connections and valves. And it's certainly something that we can look into. We meet with those towns about the lakes, so I can put that on the agenda to ask. I wouldn't be surprised if they have the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is a very niche issue, but I will look into it and report back. Again, if I sent out an email to some residents, if you want to receive them, you can just let me know, cdonovan@belmar.com.
One last thing, it's just, is there any chance that we would talk to Lake Como and Spring Lake about sharing the cost of the replacements? Because presumably you're a beneficiary as well, if you know.
Good point too. I mean, is there like a delineation of property there? Like half the valve is pipe is Belmar and half is Spring Lake or Lake Como? I mean, is there like a?
I think, my understanding is the pipes on our part of the lake.
The answer really is, we need to look at the original agreement.
Exactly.
Because I believe there was, from what I remember reading in the paper, I think there was a part of responsibility for Spring Lake and whatever, and for whatever reason, Belmar took the lead on doing the outflow pipes. So we would have to look at that original agreement to see what, if any, responsibility the other towns have. And I agree with you. I mean, we only have a small portion of that lake, when you think about it. But, because we're there, and I guess we were in a position of, saying, oh yeah, we'll do it, we'll coordinate it, now we're stuck with the problem. So definitely we will look into that.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
October 18th to be, and I'll keep it under 5 minutes for you. This past Saturday, there was a lot going on in town, like some other Saturdays where we had the old timers game and a whole bunch of other stuff happening. Is there any possibility of some type of calendar somewhere that everybody could access? It was great. I mean, like it was different stuff for the most part. You had it up at the library. You had Jack's 5 tracks with the beach music, and then you had kind of like 2 craft fairs going on. It would be nice that if, maybe they all knew about it all.
I recently had a conversation with Jenna in tourism about trying to figure out how to get a master calendar together. I know she's sort of brand new with the job right now and a little overwhelmed, but I definitely have had a conversation with her about that. That is something even Councilwoman Donovan and I have spoken about, is trying to get a master calendar together. So I think it's definitely something worth working with Jenna with, and I will try to work with her on that further.
Great. I had a boss ask me to do that like 35 years ago. I used yes, but so it's just just one big area for the whole town to look at. Thank you.
Not all of those organizations are town organizations. So one was a church, and one was Beach Music Studios, and one was the Lake Como Belmar, Lake Como Chamber. Right, so it's just knowing those schedules. It's not like we're not always privy to knowing everybody's, they don't always tell us what they've got going on.
It would be up to them. Hey, it's out here. You want to see if there's anything else going on at the same day. Like when we're doing a Jersey Mike, sometimes we'll say, is there anybody else doing anything that day? Just to make sure. So, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, gentlemen.
Yes. Sorry, just a quick. Hi, Greg Michelina, 14th and Ocean. Just want to tip the hat to the DPW for the nice cleanup they did after the storm at Aaron. Where I am, there's a lot of sand. I'm going to have to come to an environmental meeting, figure if we can't put some dunes in there by like 14, 15.
That's an issue.
Really? Well, maybe we'll. But thank you for the DPW, they did a good job.
It's an issue only because of the DEP, not because of the borough. We don't have control over the beach, despite what some people might think.
Well, really,
We
what I
can't
mean
just
is
do
there
what
are
we
people
want.
with very strong opinions about dunes.
Well, there's that, right? The man who moved the lemon stand.
Thanks. Mr. Freeman?
Eugene Creamer, 4th Avenue. I don't think that, I can't hear people with this anyway. see, I wrote this down. One-way cross-town traffic. With the Main Street bridge outage, now would be the ideal time to put one-way signage on D Street. Actually, I've already run into some problems up at the north end up there, including gas leaks and, I guess, hitting into utilities and roads being closed. However, as you recall, the only reason that D Street historically was was not converted to a one-way street was because of the Belmar First Aid Squad. And quite truthfully, they always had, when they pulled out of their facility there on D Street, they always had red flashing lights and possibly sirens. But now might be the ideal time to make that one-way signage change. And what I mean by one-way D Street towards the 8th Avenue interchange. This was planned years ago, but it was never implemented because of the location of the Belmar First Aid Squad. There's a number of advantages, including you get more parking spaces, you have less curb to paint yellow, and the passage on the street can be assured. And I tell you what I see by being home nowadays, every 5 minutes or so, there's a panel truck from Amazon, then there's FedEx, then there's UPS, then there's DHL, and let alone Delissa when they go down the street. You can't pass, and actually, engineering-wise, the streets do not accommodate two-way traffic and parking. So I think this would be a very easy time, or actually the best time to do it, because you don't want to run into situations in the summer where we have gridlock. Like I said, more street parking spaces for the people who live on the streets. You can check that with A Street, B Street, C Street, and E Street. Also, the environmental benefit is that if there are trucks that have to go down the street, they ride the crown of the roadway and don't destroy any street canopy, tree canopy that you're trying to establish on the roads. Actually, that seems to be the goal of our adjoining municipalities here, is that they're trying to increase the tree canopy over the blacktop. It generates a lot of heat in the summer, and actually there's days that you can go out there in the summer and probably fry an egg in the middle of the street. Just a recommendation, maybe you want to have, this has been checked by engineers before, but you may want to have the new borough engineer take a look at that as far as the recommendation is concerned.
Thank you. I actually drove down, after your last comment, I went down D Street from 5th Avenue where I live, and it's pretty much a clear sail all the way down to 16. So I just wanted to know, I did look at your suggestion, and it's something that we would have to take up at the council in conjunction with the chief and the traffic and engineering, but I think it's something we might want to look into. So thank you.
Yeah.
I personally love that it's a two-way street. Personally, I'm sorry, but I think it's,
Yeah.
yes.
Just make comment, that is the only through street for the entire town and into Lake Como for emergency vehicles. And that is one of the reasons why there's no parking on one side, so that you can have the two-way traffic.
That's why I said we need to really...
Not just because of the first aid, but for the fire and police as well. So just take that into consideration.
Yeah, also, I don't think we've actually experienced the closure of the Main Street Bridge, not during the summer. What I found is most locals go down to Ocean Avenue. Actually, use the Ocean Avenue Bridge to go north and south. There's no traffic lights all the way from the north end of Bradley, all the way down to the end of Seagirt, I guess, or Spring Lake. So that'll pick up some of the traffic. Also, the other thing is I tend to doubt, except for the signage that by Sylvania Avenue in Avon, that anybody, like I said, who's familiar, locals familiar with the road, are going to go take the interchange at Sylvania Avenue by Kelly's in order to get on the High Bridge. And also, once you get on the High Bridge, it doesn't come back down to ground until 8th Avenue. In other words, there's no place to get to the north end of town. You may want to take that into consideration also.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, April, seeing none,
A motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.